So for those of you who don't know, the theory of emotional intelligence was written in 1990 by Peter Salovey, who is the president of Yale now, and he was my former postdoctoral fellow advisor, and Jack Mayer, who was my doctoral advisor, my PhD advisor. And these two psychologists essentially were doing interesting studies on mood and judgment and decision making, and became friends. And the long story short is that Peter was painting his house here in New Haven when he was an assistant professor, and Jack came to visit, and they were just talking about their research. And they said to each other something like, it's interesting, all this research we're doing about how mood, affects judgment and behavior. And maybe there are certain people who are just smarter about how they deal with their emotional lives. And I wonder what we'd call people who were that kind of smart. And that's how the term emotional intelligence came about. And so what they did cleverly was they said, let's break down the science of emotion into what people can do. Like, what do people do with their feelings that would make them wise or smart about their inner life? And that is where the theory of emotional intelligence was born. So emotional intelligence is the ability to perceive and appraise and express emotion accurately and adaptively. The ability to understand emotion and emotional knowledge. The ability to access and or generate feelings when they facilitate thought. And the ability to regulate emotions in ways that assist thought. So you can see these underlying skills: perceiving emotion, this idea of using emotion to facilitate our thinking, having an understanding and the ability to label emotions, and being open to feelings and managing them effectively. And importantly, emotional intelligence as a theory is one that's about self and other. It's an interpersonal model.
How do emotions influence organizational life in general? And what we know, there's been my colleagues and I have coined it an affective revolution in the past 20 years or so in organizational behavior, in terms of knowing what does emotion influence. And basically, emotions, I can tell you, they influence everything. They influence absenteeism. They influence turnover. They influence satisfaction. They influence emotional exhaustion. They influence teamwork. They influence organizational citizenship behaviors. They influence pro-social behavior. They influence conflict. They influence performance on every measure you can imagine. They influence interpersonal dynamics. They influence gossip. There is not a phenomenon yet that has not now looked at how emotions influence those outcomes. And often they will influence them as much or not even more than the cognitive things we talk about and the cognitive constructs we talk about.
Take a look at these data. That your skill acquisition, your turnover intentions, your job satisfaction, your burnout, your daily engagement, your fear of speaking up when there's a problem, and literally ethical behavior all vary as a function of that supervisor's emotional intelligence.
So the Emotion Life Lab is a product that you experience on your phone, and it breaks down the learning process into 50 little bite-sized learning steps that you do in under 10 minutes for each step, and you do it over time. It takes a couple months. And the way we think of it is you could just sit down and do it start to finish, which would be about a day and a half training session. But we don't want you to do that, because all the learning science says you'll do much better if you learn this over time and get a chance to reflect. And then critical to the whole process is those 50 steps include some live coaching sessions that we have. The Zoom software is integrated into the product. And so you learn something on your own over a week or so, and then you go have a group discussion or a one-on-one coaching session, depending on where you are. So that's really instrumental. It's very personalized. We have a whole team of coaches that lead these discussions. And then finally, there's some tools that are there, because the learning can happen any moment. And so if you're about to have a really difficult conversation with somebody at work, and you need to refresh your skills, they're there. If you're struggling with my two kids who right now are pretty frustrated after being cooped up in the house for 5 months, and you need some help trying to figure out how to deal with that, those resources are there. So altogether, that learning program is put together to really help you get long-term skills that'll help you every day. And you can use this product for years. That's really the key. It doesn't end, just like learning emotional intelligence doesn't end. We developed the Emotion Life Lab in collaboration with our co-founders who run the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. To get a sense of how the Life Lab works, let's take a look at a single step, one of 50, this one about the mood meter. We start on the home screen. To begin, we just tap on the orange step. What are emotions? People share their thoughts.
What are emotions?
Yeah.
What are emotions? It's actually a really good question. Something that you're currently feeling at the moment? I don't know.
They are difficult to define, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they are connected to our thoughts and they are very variable.
Well, emotions are more of a subjective reaction to everyday situations and circumstances.
What are emotions? Well, it's getting deep.
Next, we engage in several activities where we try to identify our current emotional state. Now, we hear from the expert. Mark Brackett explains the mood meter.
Mark, one of the key tools of building emotional intelligence skill is the mood meter. Can you walk us through what it is and how it works?
Yeah, of course. So the mood meter is a tool based in decades of research, which shows that how we feel is a product of two basic dimensions. The first has to do with pleasantness. Think about it. Every day you wake up, you have a full day of emotions, and they range from being highly unpleasant to highly pleasant. So -5 would be the most unpleasant feeling, and +5 would be the absolute most pleasant feeling. But we also have activation levels in our body, right? There are days you feel tired, there are days you feel energized. And so the second axis is the y-axis, which we call energy. -5 would be you're the most depleted, +5 you've just got so much energy you can't contain yourself. And then as you can imagine, these axes cross and we create our mood meter. So if you look at the screen here, we've got 4 quadrants. We've got the yellow, the red, the blue, and the green. The yellow quadrant represents emotions that are very pleasant and also high in energy. Feelings like excited and happy and joyful. The red quadrant represents 2 families of emotion. The first is the anger family, so words like peeved and irritated and livid.
Frustrated.
Sure.
Okay.
To deepen our understanding, we practice placing emotions in the correct location on the mood meter. Now, for the first time, we use the built-in mood meter tool to assess our current emotional state. The Emotion Life Lab consists of a wide range of activities, games, self-reflections, and other tools. The most exciting part of the Emotion Life Lab are the 5 live learning sessions led by an OG coach. Scheduling a time is as easy as tapping. This gives you just a small taste of what the entire Emotion Life Lab experience is all about. Over the course of the 50 steps, you learn how to recognize emotions, how to regulate them, and how to work with others on regulating their emotions as well. Our users find that they gain skills that help them in every facet of life.